Welcome back to the channel. And we're smoking all my dragons, divine, righteous, almighty, greats, overachieving, never slacking. Today we got the UK election results explained. Now this is something I seriously don't know anything about. Uh, it's frustrating enough, dealing with the American and U.S. election and everything that's going on. It's seriously a circus out here. Honestly, guys, we just had our debate, what, about a week ago? And that was everything just kind of goes viral out here because, like I said, it's a circus. It's pretty wild. But yeah, I'm interested in obviously learning about the UK election. So yeah, this is going to be very educational for me. But as always, that's why I love doing these videos because I'm constantly learning, still catching on to things. But it's all worth it at the end of the day. With that being said, original link in the description. Let's get to it. Let's learn something.
The Labour Party has won this general election.
And that's it. 14 years of Conservative rule has, this morning, come to a rather brutal end. After a relatively short but terribly bruising campaign, the Conservatives have been reduced to their lowest seat share ever, with them dropping below the 156 seats that they won in the 1906 general election. On the other side of things, though, Labour have achieved almost the highest seat share in their history, getting very close to the huge 418 seats that they won in the 1997 general election. It's not only Labour who've had a good night, though. The Liberal Democrats have also had a very good night, with their seat share ticking up to a huge 71 seats, the highest seat share ever, and up from only 11 in 2019. This is, in fact, even higher than their seat share in 2010, when they agreed to a formal coalition with the Conservative Party. Similarly, it seems that Reform UK have had a pretty good night too. They've gone from no seats to a pretty respectable 4 seats. Even more impressively, it seems they've achieved an even more respectable 14.3% of the vote. The Greens didn't have a terrible night either, with them not only holding on to Brighton Pavilion, but also gaining Bristol Central, Waveney Valley and North Herefordshire. The only other party that had a pretty bad night was the SNP, who were damaged by their ongoing scandals and their very recent change of leader. Despite their electoral dominance in Scotland over the last decade or so, last night they received their lowest seat share since 2010, winning only 9 seats. This is a significant decline since 2019, when they won 48 out of the 56 available in Scotland. Obviously, this will raise a couple of key questions. The first is whether this is the beginning of the end of SNP dominance in Scotland. And secondly is what such a terrible result will mean for the cause of Scottish independence. So anyway, these are the headline results from the election. But let's dive a little deeper and have a look at what happened.
It was really hard to get out of bed in the mornings or to get the motivation to actually.
So for those that's going to be in the comments, let me know, are you guys into the election? Do you feel like I know in the U.S. we feel, a lot of us feel like it's rigged a lot. Are those same feelings common or popular in the UK?
Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. Now, the key event from last night occurred at 10 p.m, when we got our first indication of what was to come in the release of the exit poll. Now, the most shocking thing to note in the exit poll here was the number of expected Reform seats. The exit poll predicted that Reform would get 13 seats, significantly higher than most of the MRP polls in the run-up to the election. However, there were some wobbles through the night, with some polls suggesting that the exit poll had overestimated the number of seats. The more observant of you will notice that it turns out that the exit poll had indeed overestimated, and in the end, Reform achieved only 4 seats. The other shocking find from the exit poll was the number of predicted Tory seats. Prior to election day, many of the MRP polls were predicting below 100 Tory seats, while the exit poll predicted that the Tories were going to win 131 seats. What followed was deeply chaotic, and something that made writing this video through the night even more difficult. As the results started coming in, it appeared that the exit poll was slightly wrong, although the BBC and ITV couldn't quite agree in what direction. In the wee hours of Friday morning, the BBC updated their prediction, with them suggesting that the Conservatives were going to win more seats, while ITV updated theirs and predicted that they would in fact win fewer. As things stand, it appears that the Tories have won slightly fewer than originally predicted, but not significantly. Anyway, overall results aside, the night was also particularly interesting when it came to individuals. There were two properly shocking and unexpected results. The first was Jonathan Ashworth unexpectedly losing his seat to an independent candidate. Ashworth has previously been the Shadow Health Secretary and, up until today, was the Shadow Paymaster General. It appears that the loss of his seat has been a result of Labour's stance on Gaza, something that could cause problems for the incoming Labour government more generally. The second unexpected result was Jeremy Corbyn's election in Islington North. Having been deselected as a Labour MP, Corbyn opted to stand in his constituency as an independent. He did, however, make the decision to stand rather late in the election cycle, something that led to a decent proportion of journalists and pundits to believe that he was going to lose the constituency to the new Labour candidate. This wasn't the case.
So, once again, for my viewers, that's my main question is, do you guys trust these guys? Do they seem genuine as far as any of these parties? I don't know. This is my first time ever diving into this, so I like to hear from the people and truly hear what the people have to say. And I also would like to know, like, based on what party you do support, why do you support them? And yeah, definitely educate me in those comments and just let me know. Let me know which ones may seem corrupt or which ones may seem genuine or which person, depending on what names are even mentioned in this video.
Case though, and Corbyn secured himself a pretty decent majority. So now that we've gone through exactly what happened through the night, it's worth going through what this all means for the main parties. Now, the most interesting party to discuss right now are the Conservatives, who, as we've just discussed, lost some pretty major figures through the night. At the time of writing, Sunak has not yet announced his resignation as Conservative leader, although he is expected to either this morning or in the coming days and weeks. This will naturally kickstart a Tory leadership election. The question now is who would take over? While it's a little too soon to tell, there are some candidates that are in a particularly strong position right now. Kemi Badenoch is in the strongest position. She's got a rather strong following among right-wing Tories, both in Parliament and among the membership. What really bolsters this position is the fact that one of her key rivals for the leadership, Penny Mordaunt, lost her seat last night. It is worth mentioning, though, that there has been an issue in Badenoch's constituency with postal votes, and if this is challenged in the courts, it could cause problems for her candidacy in the Tory leadership election. Anyway, someone else that there's some chatter about in terms of taking over the Tory leadership is Nigel Farage and his potential defection from Reform UK in order to lead the Tories. After all, he now has a seat in the House of Commons, and there are some relatively senior members of the Conservative Party who have gone on the record as saying that they would like Farage to join their party. Only the next few weeks will show exactly what happens here, but if you do want to stay informed on this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Anyway, what happens next for Labour is quite simple. The new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, will meet the King and agree to form a government in his name. He'll take office at Downing Street, assemble his first cabinet, and could even represent his party in a PMQ session before the imminent summer recess. They will soon begin implementing their policy platform as outlined in their manifesto. Whether they're successful at implementing this is not yet known though, and something we'll need to keep an eye on through the next few years of Labour government. Regardless, this is clearly a monumental election for Labour and the UK, and when these kinds of elections happen, people tend to like to save newspapers and magazines with the headlines for posterity. The best way you could possibly do that is by picking up a copy of Too Long.
Our 60-page, high-quality magazine full of TLDR's very best journalism. This issue is focused on the UK election, diving deep into the campaign, the results, and how the winners plan to fix Britain. It's more than just Britain, though, with stories including the European parliamentary elections, the countries likely to join the EU next.
What is it mainly about Britain that needs to be fixed? From the outside looking in, what's the major problems out in Britain? I'm definitely curious about that. I tend to hear so much good, mostly. Is there a lot of crime? I know in certain areas I definitely hear about crime. The knife crime out in London, but other than that, like, is poverty a big thing? How's the educational system? How's, like, what's the big problems out there? Even as far as environment, these are the main things. Do you guys have, how, like in America we have obviously, like, we have natives, who live on reservations, and is there natives around the UK, like, um native, like, certain native tribes that have been there for ever, pretty much, or for as long as people can, before these new systems were set up, um, that still have some type of identity somewhere out there. Maybe, like, how everybody kind of, when you go somewhere, like, say if you were to go to, let's say if you were to travel to Africa, Australia, and people can point at you like, okay, go this way, go into the forest, go into the village. Those people have been here for, I'm curious, does the UK have that? And if so, how are they treated? And these are questions that, that would come to me as just a citizen if I was out there. Um, Obviously, I hear no complaints about, like, the healthcare system or anything like that. Um, I don't ever hear anything about debt within school out there. So yeah, like, I'd be curious, like, what's the biggest issues, someone from, like I said, from the outside looking in, and why do you support certain parties? Obviously, I'm still, it's a lot to take in, learning these different breakdowns on what happened here and this and that, but yeah, that would be my personal questions.
The latest from Gaza, the rise of Melee, and of course the US election. Now, we've decided to make the magazine for two reasons. Firstly, it allows our journalists.
Hold on. Let's not. What did he say about the U.S. election? Oh, he's talking about the magazine. Listen, if any of y'all that kind of keep up on a U.S. election, here's a secret. A lot of us don't even keep up on a U.S. election. When I'm at my client's house and the news is on, and that day, listen, I got clients. They don't even care. They don't even want to hear it no more. A lot of my clients are older people, well past their 50s, and they just be tired. They don't even. It's nonsense to them at this point. So, I do you guys? Is there a lot of people in the UK who feel the same way as far as with your election? Because I know in America, a lot of people are just kind of like, I don't want to participate in the circus. Like, that's really the truth, as far as what's going on out here.
The rise of Melee, and of course the US election. Now, we've decided to make the magazine for two reasons. Firstly, it allows our journalists to write in more detail, diving deeper and ignoring algorithmic restrictions to produce the best work we can. And secondly, it's a good way for you to support TLDR and will help us to produce free YouTube videos as long as we can. If you're interested, then you can pick up a copy from our website, where we're selling two editions of the magazine. Firstly, there's the standard edition, and then there's the premium edition, which gets your name printed in the thank you section of the magazine, and exclusive access to our behind the scenes podcast. Oh, and by the way, we're going to be making an issue of Too Long every 4 months. So if you want to ensure that you never miss an issue, then you can subscribe, which gets you a 25% discount. If you have more questions, there's a full Q&A linked in the description, where you'll also find a link to our store. And while you're there, make sure you use the code ELECTIONWEEK to get an additional £2 off any purchase. Thanks so much for hearing me out, and if you are interested, please do pick up a copy, as it's a great way to support our journalism and help us to continue making free YouTube videos as long as we can.
Much love to them. Much love to them. That's definitely a video I would have to go back and study. I would definitely do more homework just for me to even understand certain things. Like I said, this is my first time even. I didn't even know there was, like, conservatives, and I wouldn't have known nothing about how the UK works. But this was, like I said, this was a very educational video for somebody who wants to know, and yeah, just brings a bunch of questions to my head. I really want to hear the people in the comments. That's really my main thing. I want to hear how the people feel, and are you guys happy with how everything's turning out with the election out there. Were you happy with this video? Did you agree with the explanation of this video of how the UK results how they're explained? So let me know, and looking forward to learning some more from you guys. With that being said, much love, everybody. Enjoy your day, and I'll see you soon.